Welcome, patrons. Continuing on with obscure Dragon Age tie-ins, I want to introduce you to the collection of short stories that BioWare has released. Written by various members on the writing staff, they serve as promotional material for both Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. In total, there are currently 10. 7 of those are for Dragon Age 2, 1 for each companion. Today, we're just going to be going over Dragon Age 2 short stories, and the others will come later. So, let's begin. Dragon Age 2 short stories. Going over each companion, I think they served as promotional material to get you to know your companions before you played the game. None of the articles are really dated, and there is little information floating around about them, but it seems they were released on the Dragon Age 2 website along with a short bio and pictures of the character. The best time frame I can give for this is that to read the stories, you need to download a PDF file. The Dragon Age 2 website still actually has them intact, with Sebastian's being kept on the information with his DLC rather than along with the companions. All the others, minus Aveline's, is dated February 18th, 2011, a little under a month before Dragon Age 2 came out. Aveline's is dated April 8th, 2011, exactly a month after it was released. Now, I do think they were released either at that time or in very early 2012, as David Gator, the writer for Fenris' short story, has this to say about it on the BioWare blog on a post about fanfiction. Even so, I don't write fanfiction or much short fiction at all. My last attempt was a short story I wrote for Fenris before I even knew the character well, done in a single afternoon on a tight deadline. I cringe when I look at it now because I know I can do better. So with all the context squared away, let's go over each of them in order of when you roughly recruit the members in game, because that's the best way I can think of doing it. Also, as a reminder, I've linked all these short stories down in the description because they're free to read. While I could link to the official versions, the Dragon Age 2 website acts kind of funky now because it's just so old, so I'm choosing to go with the wiki as I will believe it will be archived for longer. Focus by Luke Chris Johnson. Set before Aveline is married, revealing her maiden name to be Tulak, this is the story of how she met Wesley Valen. She's a part of the Kingsguard and gets a call for help from a Templar squire. She runs off alone to save the Templars while her companions get ready. She finds Wesley hurt, and when she wants to take him away to be healed, he says that he has to defeat the demon first. Aveline agrees, although she's confused on the ways of demons. Wesley tries to flirt a bit, Aveline is awkward, and they face off together with the demon. And then at the very end, there's a short bit on how she told her ill father, Benoit Dulac, that she was going to marry Wesley, and she's not asking for his permission. And her father gives approval on both choices. Also, he calls her Big Girl. It's actually a really sweet little story, and even though it's only 2 pages, you actually gather a lot about what drew Wesley to Aveline and Aveline's relationship with her father. This is also the only short story out of the Dragon Age 2 era to have an actual name to it. Lore-wise, the only issue I have with it is that it's partially set in Dale's End, which sounds like it would be in Orlais. Possibly it could just be on the border, as the Dales are quite close to Ferelden, but that's just my confusion. Varrick, short story by Mary Kirby. Set at the very start of Act 1 in Dragon Age 2, perhaps before he met Hawke, Varrick is playing cards with Gallard and Sir Thrask, and Varrick is winning. About 2 messengers from the Merchant Guild ask for Varrick, the whole bar shouts that they have no idea who that is. The small group then talk about Bartrand's Deep Road expedition and how he shouldn't go through with it, but Varrick wants to take the bet. Now, Sir Thrash should actually sound familiar, as he's the Templar that helps Hawke with trying to do good for the mages in Kirkwall. Gallard, an elf, is actually a known character, but he's never actually seen a game. He's the writer for a few letters-turned-codex entries in the series. It seems that he is a part of the coterie and has had dealings with Gamlen. Probably the most interesting thing coming from this is that Varrick states that he doesn't actually drink in the Hanged Man because the alcohol is so bad. But he always orders wine because people look nervous when you don't have a drink in your hand. This isn't exactly something that keeps well in the game, so I wonder if this is actually a secret and Varrick talks about drinking, but he doesn't actually drink. Anders, short story by Jennifer Hepler. Set before Dragon Age 2 starts, it starts with Anders waking up after just merging with Justice, his reasoning to do so, and his confusion as to what he is now. Another warden named Roland, who used to be a Templar and Anders believes was sent by the Chantry, has saw what he'd become, and summoned another Templar to deal with him. When Anders awakens, he kills both of them, then questions who he is. The most interesting part of this is that when Roland wishes to kill Anders, he takes his sword and pushes it into Anders' chest, hilt deep. And Anders lets him do it, because he knows he can't be killed with steel. And yet in Dragon Age 2, this is how Hawke kills Anders? Perhaps this is a hint that Anders isn't really dead, one that came out before the game was likely released. Also, fun facts, this is the longest of the stories at exactly 3 pages. Fun! Meryl, short story by Mary Kirby. Set when Meryl's clan had just settled Sundermount, it's of her and the Keeper setting out to find what is speaking to them in their dreams. They reach the top to find unknown ruins and a demon called Audacity that promises knowledge if it's set free. Then they leave. Now, this is actually the same demon that Meryl will eventually learn blood magic from to fix the Alluvion, but this is not the time she agrees to help it, although she never actually freed the demon. Her Keeper will do that in a personal quest and some bizarre reasoning that I won't go into now. Now, out of all of them, this one definitely is the most lighthearted. The best way I can describe it is that it's just very Meryl. The Meryl coming from this is very strong. You can definitely hear her voice when you read this prose. Fenris, short story by David Gator. Set some time before Fenris reaches Kirkwall, the story is about him evading capture by Deventer Guards. He had been traveling from city to city, getting more careless each time, perhaps because he was tired of the hunt. He thinks on how he's angry with southern elves as they use their freedom to cower in fear, and Dalish elves just don't do anything. Eventually, he is chased down an alleyway, he phases his fist in a guard's head, jumps through a window to a screaming woman and steals her bread, and then meets a guard captain that has been chasing him down. He attacks and probably survives, as we don't meet his unnamed captain, and we do meet Fenris later on. There really isn't too much to say about this one. Like I mentioned earlier, Gator isn't too happy with this, as he just didn't have a grasp of his character yet. But as this was posted just before the game came out, this was probably written much earlier in the game's development. I have to say, out of all the stories, this one definitely feels like it was written before Fenris is fleshed out. He doesn't have a lot of voice yet, if that makes sense. Isabella, short story by Cheryl Chi. This is actually the only one that isn't set in the perspective of the character it's talking about. This is in the head of the bartender in the Hanged Man, which if it's the one in Dragon Age 2, his name is Korf. He sees Isabella coming in, all wet and covered in soot. It seems like this is set right after Isabella's ship had sunk. Isabella pays all she has on alcohol, breaks the fingers of a man who touched her, and when Korf asks about the little she's wearing, she tells him the rest of her clothes are at the bottom of the ocean. Then a man named Lucky introduces himself as someone who knows everything about Kirkwall. She tells him off, but before he goes, she tells him that she's actually looking for something and might need his help. Now, this is the same Lucky that attacks Isabella when you first meet her, when she doesn't pay up when he doesn't actually find the thing she was looking for. It also gives a reasonable explanation as to why she wears so little in-game. She just lost all her clothes. That makes a lot of sense, actually. But then again, I have no idea why she's still wearing it almost 10 years later. Sebastian, short story by Jennifer Hepler. Set well before Dragon Age 2 and just after Sebastian was given to the Chantry by his family, he hates being in the Kirkwall Chantry. He didn't want to give a vow of chastity and leave his life behind, but he was given a note and some rope by a mysterious person to meet him so they can help him escape from here. He prays to Andraste for help in escaping, and then he's off. After dark, he shoots out a candle with his bow in a weird flex, but okay, then uses the rope to escape. He is then greeted by Grand Cleric Althenia, the person who has been helping him. He is confused, but she tells him that he was given to the Chantry so that he wouldn't produce children to overthrow his brother's rule. His dedication to the Chantry isn't religious, it's political. She gives him the large amount of money his parents bribed the Chantry with, and tell him that while he is faithful in his own way, he has to choose the life of being a brother, not be forced into it. Then she leaves. Sebastian thinks on the life he had before was a selfish one, a useless one. So he chooses to stay. Honestly, out of all of the stories, this is probably the best one. This gives you a glimpse of what Sebastian could have been in the games. This Sebastian is flawed, not preachy, interesting, and at war with himself. And while we do get a bit of an echo of that in Dragon Age 2, and I do think that was the intention for his character, I don't think he really had enough content to make this shine. So this short story is really the best we have of Sebastian. And therefore, out of all the short stories, if you could only read one, I'd actually recommend this one. And that, dear patrons, is all that I have on the Dragon Age 2 short stories. If you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory, feel free to tweet me at Gildathon on Twitter or send a PM to User Gilnon on Reddit. Duresh Sharal.